Hello and welcome back to yet another video of our KMM series. So in this specific video, what we will do is that we'll update our weather application and we'll try to implement the user location, right? So for now, you can see that we hard code everything. We send this London as a hard coded city. But now what I will try to do is that I'll add the user location so that when we open the screen, it basically fetches the data based on the user location. Okay, so that would be the first thing that we will do, and without wasting any time, let's just get started. Okay, so to fetch location, since basically location is very different for both Android and iOS, we have two ways to do it. One is to do it manually, like to implement all the iOS related stuff separately and Android related stuff separately. The other way is to use this cool SDK that you can use for fetching location, and that is Moko. Moko is basically a set of libraries that you can use for specifically Kotlin related stuff. Specifically, if you want to develop things in native Kotlin, or if you want to develop something with multi-platform, they have plenty of libraries that you can use. And in this specific video, what I'll try to do is that I'll use their Moko-Geo SDK, and they have this small guide on this as well. But there is one issue right now, that they don't have the implementation for Compose Multiplatform. Okay, so that is something that we'll do on our own, but other than that, everything is there. Okay, so the first thing that we will do over here is that we'll get this thing from the dependencies, and I'll just copy this and get to the code. And inside this Compose app, we have this build.gradle file. Okay, so over here in the common section, add that. Okay, now it will complain because it doesn't contain the other stuff. So what I'm gonna do is that I'll call it API and API. Okay, both of them should be called API, and then I'll sync it. So once we sync this, we'll have a couple of things that we can access. Okay, so along with that, I would also want to add the view model implementation as well. So I'm gonna say add view model as well. This is not required, but it is just a good to have thing. So we can use this, and the dependencies is something. Let me just get that. Okay, here is the dependency that you can add. Okay, so once you do that, we can just sync it. So this means that specific implementation is done. And now what I'll do is that I'll slightly update my view model, because right now you can see the view model is just a simple class without anything. But now what I'll do is that I'll implement the life cycle behavior for that as well, so that we can access it. And also, like, you can see that we are using this. So now I'll just use it for based on the view model scope. So that's one thing, right? The second thing is that for location, we also need some sort of permission as well, because without permission we'll not be able to fetch the location. And permission on both Android and iOS is different, right? So let's just try to implement the permission and location features, right? So to implement the permission, we have we do have some functionality that we can do. So what I'll do is that over here I'll create another state, and let's call it permission state. Okay, and let's call this, and now this is going to be permission state and underscore permission state. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, the second thing is that let's implement a function, and let's call it, okay, just one more thing, that we over here we want to change this to permission state, and the initial state of that permission state is going to be permission state dot not determined. Okay, which means that we don't know right now what exactly is the permission right now. So that is one thing that's done. Now the second thing is that we need to provide permission, sorry, provide location permission. Okay, so now over here we want to provide that permission location. This method will basically check if we don't have the permission, which will be, it will request for that permission, and then based on that will do. But the important thing is that in Android, you know that we have that controller that can basically help us with the permission, but over here we don't have that. So uh, one more addition that I'll add over here, and that would be to add a wall location tracker that is coming from the Moko-Geo API. Basically, this is the geo application that we use, location tracker, and this will be available for by this. Okay, so the next thing is that we will do is that we'll go for view model scope dot launch, right? That's for one thing. And the next thing is going to be that we'll say location tracker dot permission controller dot, let's say if permission is granted, which means the permission is going to be location. Okay, this is the permission that we will be using. So like if it's granted, this means that we don't have to do anything, right? So if is granted, we'll just set that state, and along with that we'll return. But if it's not granted, what we will do is that we will provide location permission. Okay, and this basically does is this a whole implementation requires this mechanism, and it can either throw an exception as denied always exception. Okay, and then we can also catch denied exception, and along with that we can just catch another exception that's just a generic exception. Okay, so this means that if the permission state is like if the permission state is completed, like if this whole step is done, this means that the permission state is now granted. Okay, so like if it doesn't crash, is like if it doesn't throw any sort of exception, this means that it is granted. The second thing would be if permission state dot value is basically going to be denied always, and in this case it is going to be denied. Okay, and for this we don't want to assign anything, so we'll just keep the previous state whatever it is, and let's just simple practice of what we do have. Okay, so now this is another step that will basically check if the permission is available. Fine, if not, it will ask for the permission and then move forward accordingly. Now we have location permission done, we have this permission state that is properly handled. The other thing is, the next thing is that we want to update this specific functionality as well, because right now we are just passing a string to this. Now what we will do is that we'll try to update it so that it can handle location based on the latitude and longitude. Okay, so for that what I'm gonna do is that I'll go to the fetch weather or get weather section over here, and now over here you can see that before the app ID it's getting a city. Okay, so there's just one more thing that I'll do, and that is that I'll get rid of this q equals to. Okay, secondly, we don't need the city. For the city, what we will be doing is that I'll require a let long. Okay, and let's call this a location. That's one thing. And now over here inside this, what I'm gonna do is that I'll say that that is going to be let equals to. Okay, and also I need to add this to the handle. Okay, so latitude is equals to location dot latitude, Okay, and then the next thing is that we'll call it longitude is equals to, and for that what I'm going to do is that I'll say location dot longitude. Okay, so that is some extra thing that I have added. Like previously it was requiring a like city. Right now it's basically asking me for a latitude and longitude. Okay, and now when I get over here it will complain because we need to update the previous whole flow as well. So I'm gonna call this location, just updating the existing flows. Okay, and then now when we go over here into this fetch feather, we'll also update it to contain a lat long. Okay, so now this is done, and you can rename it as well for better understanding and better readability of your code as well. Now if I go over here, we are using it like this. Okay, and I don't want to do that. Secondly, this view model is complaining because it requires a location tracker as well. So what I'm gonna do over here is that I'll basically create a location tracker for this. And how do we do that? So what we will do is that we'll create a wall. I'll create a factory that is basically important to do that, and that is supposed to be creating a um, remember location tracker factory. Okay, and it requires accuracy. So basically you can add whatever you want, location tracker best, let's say in this case, and then that is done. Second thing is that we need a tracker. So well, what I'm going to do is that I'll call it this, but we need to avoid recreation during the recomposition. So I'll add it like this. Okay, what mistake am I doing? Okay, so location tracker, and then over here it requires a location tracker, so I'll just pass this. Okay, so I guess our home screen is done, and our home screen is properly managing it. Now the next thing is that right now you can see that we have this circular progress bar and that stuff, but before that what I'll do is that I'll create another state, and that is going to be my permission state. Permission state is equals to view model dot permission state. And now what I'll do is that when the permission state dot value, we also need to collect this as state as well. So if its permission state dot this is the first thing. Second thing is going to be denied, and the third part is going to be else, because right for this we'll basically ask them to either like right. So what I'm gonna do over here is that for this I'm gonna call this home screen content like the way it is. Sorry, now basically over here what I'll do is that based on the previous state, like the other state that I have, I'll do it. But before that what I'm gonna do is that I'll call launched effect, and over here basically what we will do is that we will request, or maybe you can say update location data. Okay, so I'm just gonna call this, and over here in this specific section, if it's denied, okay, so if it's denied, what I'm gonna do is that let's call it denied always, because in this case we will be opening a setting, like we'll create a button over here, and then that button is going to be this, something like this. And now over here we know that we have this location tracker. So location tracker dot permission controller, and then over here what we will do is that we'll say open setting. Okay, and now we'll do the same thing. We'll do the same button over here as well, but for this case what I'm gonna do is that we'll basically not use this. In fact, we will call it view model dot provide location permission. Okay, So that's done, and now we need to implement this functionality. Okay, so what I'll do is that I'll just create a new function over here inside this view model. So basically this function is basically going to be the function that will basically pass the fetch the weather. So we need to have a lat long from some place. Right now we don't know from where, and then what we are going to do is that we'll pass that lat long to this. Okay, so now what we need to do is that we need to get the user location. So what I'm saying, get user location, right? This is another function that I created, and now I'll basically create this. So this is done, and this is going to be a suspend function as well. So just make sure that when you do that, you use it through view model scope dot launch. Okay, so over here we'll do this like this, and now inside this section the first thing is that we will be doing that is going to be location tracker dot start tracking. Then we need to do is location tracking dot location dot get location flows, and then we need to do is that we'll basically location tracker dot stop, and that is going to be wall location is equals to this. Now we'll call it location dot first. Okay, so we need to import that. Okay, now that is done. So basically what happens is that over here we'll fetch the location using this. Okay, the location tracker is basically coming from the geolocation, and the first mean is that whatever the first data that we have available in this flow will get that only. Okay, and then we'll just stop the tracking so that we don't get any more location change requests and responses. Okay, now let's just do one more thing before we can do it, and that is basically to define the permission. Okay, so over here you need to do is that uses permission, and let's call it location. That is going to be find location, and also along with that you need to define uses permission course location. Okay, so you need to define these two permissions as well. Okay, so now once that is done, let's just see if this fetches and this city changes. So which means if the city changes or this location changes, this means that our specific implementation has worked. So let's hope. Okay, so initially we don't have the permission, so I'll just click on this. Okay, it's not working, and why it's not working is because we need to bind it. So right now we don't have, like, we haven't added any binder. We have the location tracker, but we have not bind it, so we need to get this functionality of bind location tracker effect that basically bind that location tracker that we have along with the activity. So let's just do that and then try again. Okay, it's crashing. It says that the main activity cannot be converted to fragment casted. So let's just do that and then make it a fragment activity. Okay, and now just try again. So these kind of things, these basically specific things that we have done are required by the Geo SDK that we have, and we have to do that before we can run this. So now we have this, and now if I click on it, you see I get this. Okay, so now you can see that there is some other issue over here that we need to fix. Okay, another thing is that over here you see with the way we are creating our view model is basically not supposed to handle those things. So what I'm gonna do is that I'll use this, and now let me just check one thing before I can move forward. So there is just one more thing we need to fix, and that is this. Basically since we are stopping it and then trying to fetch it, this means that this will be basically cleared out. So what I'm gonna do is that I'll just get this, so from there, and then I'll just use it over here. Okay, that's the only thing that we need to do. And now let's just try and run this code and see if it fixes the problem that we have. So over here we get this. We'll fix this. Okay, it's not an issue, but let's just see if this fixes the problem. And yes, now you can see the city updated, and then the data that basically we received is also updated. So that is one thing. And the second thing is that there's a problem that we have is that when I open this app, the initial state I get is this granted, and that is because I set it as not determined, right? So what I'm gonna do is that I'll create a init function over here, and inside init what I will do is that I'll call it permission state dot value is equals to location tracker dot permission controller dot get permission state, and that is going to be for this. Okay, and since it requires a suspendable function, so what I'm gonna do is that I'll call it view model scope dot view model scope dot launch, and inside that launch I'll basically add it like this. Okay, and now let's just rerun it and see if now when I load it, it already gets the permission that I require without any issue. And now you saw that it didn't require me to load that, like to click on that button. It basically by default got that permission. Now you see that when I close the app, reopen it, it doesn't require me. So now that is one thing. And now what we need to do is that we need to exactly replicate the same behavior for iOS. Okay, so let's just try and see if we can run the same behavior over here. And I have this application already running over here, so it will just prepare the build and then run it. And now the app just opened, and then when I click on this, it won't do anything, and then it says that it's basically it's not supposed to get this specific key string is not available. Okay, so what we need to do is that we need to define that specific thing inside the iOS as well. So for that what we need to do is that you need to go to this iOS app, and now inside this iOS app what you need to do is that you need to go over here and then right click over there and then open in Xcode. Okay, so what we need to do is that we need to open this project in Xcode, and you can copy this over here like this ns location when in usage. Okay, now you can see that this project is basically opening for me. And now inside this you'll see that you'll have this info.plist section. Okay, so this is your iOS app, and you will see this info under this iOS app section. Okay, so you come over here and just right click and then create add, like click on add raw, and once you add that raw, just need to be over here, and then create add raw, and then add raw you need to paste the description or the text that we copied, and you press enter. Okay, so when you enter over here you need to define why you need to access these permissions. Okay, so what I'll explain is that to fetch the weather data based on your location, right? So this is basically a string message that will be shown to the user along with the pop-up. So that is once you do that, you are done. You can just close the Xcode, and then you can just rerun it again from the Android Studio. You can even run that from Xcode, but it's just like I just want to run both the application from same place so that we have a better understanding of that. Okay, so the build is done. Now Android Studio is just open it for like this, and now when you can see that when I click on that, it asks me for the permission, and I'll just say I'll just add allow, and now you can see that it fetches San Francisco. The reason for why we have a different location is that I basically from over here what I do is that I can just change my Android's location, and when I fetch the data, it basically gets me data from that specific location. And now you can see that it's showing Lahore. Previously it was Model Town. So that's how basically why I have this separate than the iOS one, and then for iOS we have San Francisco, because I don't know how we can change the location of that for simulator. So I guess that's it for this video. And in this specific video, what we did is that we tried to get the user data or user location, and then based on that, what we did is that we fetch the data from the backend. Okay, so in the next video, what we will do is that we'll implement the forecast for this specific location that user basically have. So like over here we'll have a button, and when user click on that button, it will take user to another screen, and that screen will contain the information for that specific location based on the daily forecast and weekly forecast. So I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please click the like button, and if you have any suggestion or comments, please don't forget to comment over here. You can also join my Discord server if you need some further help with your project. And I'll see you in the next video. So till then, have a good day. Bye.